Can you imagine at 17 being forced to marry a 60-year-old man? That's what happened to Mary Delaney. And yet she became nationally famous in her 80s in the time of King George III for these incredible paper cutouts. She called them paper mosaics of images of plants with cut paper. So much so that the king became her friend. He gave her a personal pension, and she made almost 800 or so of these incredibly detailed plant cutouts, and they are now on display and regularly rotated in the British Museum. Mary Delaney, an inspiration to us all, famous in her 80s. Quick tip, if you come to the British Museum to see the Rosetta Stone, and when you come in, turn right, go into the Enlightenment Gallery and walk straight through to your left, and you will see that they have a scale copy of the Rosetta Stone without the massive crowds around it, that you're more than welcome to look at and even touch, understand it in more detail, and only when you've got the full experience, go around the corner, the other side of the museum, and see it after the crowd of about 10 deep is in front of you. Quick tip, British Museum. So this is Great Scotland Yard, and this is where the City of Westminster Police keep their horses. And look, they can see a mobile farrier making horseshoes for them inside as well. This is an orrery, or a mechanical model of the solar system. It was a teaching tool designed to illustrate the Copernican revolution, which was meant to show how not just the planets revolved around the sun, but each planet had its own set of moons as well. This is the crank that can be used to make it move around. So it only works in 2 dimensions, not in 3, but it still is meant to show the relative distances between the planets and the sun and their orbital relationships to each other. It dates from about 1750, and it is in the Enlightenment Gallery in the British Museum. Look at the size of this foot. Imagine how big this sculpture would have been. This is the Guildhall, the administrative beating heart of the City of London. The porch is from the 1780s, but the walls behind it are much, much older. These walls, in fact, date back to the early years of the 15th century, and they were the gift to the city from a famous person who really lived, not just a pantomime character, who is ennobled, as it were, here. Here he is, looking back. There's his favourite cat. There's the London sign. This is indeed the famous Lord Mayor of London, Dick Whittington, who gave the money to build the Guildhall. The triptych to a Catholic martyr. This is Bishop Fisher of Rochester. There he is with his flock, Rochester Castle, Rochester Cathedral, and he became a victim of Henry VIII, ironically called Fidei Defensor, defender of the faith. Of course, he broke with the church to get divorced. Along with Thomas More, John Fisher refused to change his religion. He was then taken to the Tower of London, where he was executed on June the 22nd, 1535. He was buried in the entrance of this very church, All Hallows by the Tower, and is now commemorated here in the church. Here are the ravens, lost at sea, no known grave. This little book in All Hallows by the Tower, near the River Thames, is dedicated to the memory of people who's lost their lives at sea and have no known graves. Each entry records details of exactly what happened to them. Some are in war, but a lot in peacetime too, all very tragic. And if you know of someone who should be memorialised here, you can apply through this application form. A little corner of the church dedicated to those who have no known grave. For my American friends and readers, I'm going to show you the crypt because there's something very exciting down here from American history. Apologies again for the nature of my videos being very shaky. Right, this is the crypt. It's also a museum. Some Roman tombstones here. But this church was the scene of 2 American famous people. The first is William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania. was baptised in this church on the 23rd of October, 1644. The founder of the state of Pennsylvania. And next door we have the marriage register of Mr. John Quincy Adams, who was a delegate representing the government of the United States. At the time, the only American president to be married to a non-American before the president, Mr. Trump, became elected in 2017. So here we have it, All Hallows by the Tower, Saxon church with American history. The archer stretched his bow to its full might from the crenellations of the Tower of London, let fly his arrow. It went all the way through here into the ground, which is just here, and it landed on this triangle here. This is a boundary marker, number 10, for the Tower Liberties. The Tower Liberties show the extent of the Tower of London's boundaries for the area that it controlled, and it meant that it could control the area to see people coming, etc. in it. It's now inside that spot, this remarkable hotel, 10 Trinity Square, which used to be the Port of London Authority headquarters. It doubles up in Skyfall as MA6 headquarters. It's now owned, I believe, by a Saudi billionaire and Bill Gates. It's a wonderful hotel, and it has a historical marking from the Tower of London archer in it. So when this church, All Hallows by the Tower, was almost totally destroyed in the Blitz in 1940, the lead roof melted. It fell through molten lead, all the gaps and holes and crannies and nooks in the church, and finally a section of it came to rest, solidified here in the crypt of All Hallows by the Tower, a memory that's been kept of the devastation of 1940. Welcome to the least damaged of all Christopher Wren's City of London churches, St Martin, Ludgate. It's next to where the ancient Roman wall was, and it's virtually unchanged apart from maybe the stained glass, which Christopher Wren never used. It has a font in it. The font is very interesting. It has this inscription, which is a palindrome, which means it runs backwards and forwards with the same letters in ancient Greek, and the Greek writing itself means, cleanse my sin only, not my face. Brandy Nan, you're left in the lurch, your face to the gin shop, your arse to the church. This is the nursery rhyme that was put up about Queen Anne, whose statue is in front of St Pauls Cathedral, not Victoria, as most people think. Why is it here? Because she was the queen when the cathedral was completed. What makes this the oldest church in the City of London? It's this arch. It's a Saxon arch from around 750 AD. It was only discovered when the church was heavily bombed, almost destroyed in the Blitz. The one benefit of it is that it blew away what was covering this arch. Now the Saxons reused Roman tiles, which are already between 300 to 400 years old when the arch was made. The Romans left in 410 AD, and the Saxons recycled, upcycled material that they found, an early example of environmentally friendly building practices. Oscar Wilde famously said, "We may all be in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars." This is just by Charing Cross Station. It's a wonderful sculpture of him by Maggie Hamling. The most attacked sculpture in London. This cigar has been sawn off about 8 times. Maggie Hamling, also, as you might see, she's deliberately put stars and even a crescent moon inside the sculpture to reflect Oscar Wilde's famous words. Did you hear about the sex scandal of the Duke of York? Not Prince Andrew, but this one. This was the Duke of York, the brother of King George IV. He had to resign from public life for a couple of years as the head of the army after it was revealed that his mistress had been secretly selling commissions into the army. Unlike our dear Prince Andrew, he was exonerated a couple of years later and was able to return as head of the army. I don't think that's going to happen to Prince Andrew somehow. This was entirely destroyed by an IRA bomb in 1993, built back again I don't know why they called it the Centre for Reconciliation and Peace. It should have been Peace and Reconciliation, think of the acronym. Anyway, go around the side and you can see where the devastation caused by the IRA bomb stopped and the rebuilding had to start again. So it was a medieval church that had survived the Great Fire of London, and this is the original part, all that was left. So there's nothing modern about the idea of attacking monuments. Look at this brass in the church of All Hallows by the Tower. You can see here that certain words have been removed from the inscription. This is because in the Puritan era, in the 1650s, 40s, people actually paid to go into the churches and remove any sign of things that might refer back to the papish or Catholic tendencies within all the memorials. So both these beautiful memorials have been scratched out. Excrement, offal, offcuts, stinking urine poured from windows all over the streets of medieval London. You couldn't walk without getting your clothes and feet absolutely horrifically stained, and that is why the medieval people created pattens, these special overshoes that you would wear to protect your feet. They're like clogs or stilts or whatever, and a whole guild was created for the people who made these. They were so powerful, one of the 110 liveries of the City of London. Hello, I'm in St Bride's Church in Fleet Street, on the site of an ancient Roman memorials. And there's a museum in the church. I want to show you one particular item here, the Resurrectionist's tomb. It is a metal coffin that was designed to try and stop the Burke and Hare type medical demand for fresh cadavers, newly buried bodies that would be cut up for experiments at St Bart's Hospital just down the road. So this, as you can see here, it's an entirely iron coffin. You can pause and read this for more details, as you can here as well, but it's right in the basement of St Bride's Church in the middle of Fleet Street. This church has probably saved the lives of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people over the years. Why? Because the rector of it, Mr. Chad Vara, attended the funeral of a young teenage girl who had killed herself. He swore to always remember her and set up a society to save people in similar extreme distress, and they were the Samaritans. The ugliest building in London, as voted by Time Out readers when this was first put up, Number One Poultry, now has the distinction of being the newest listed building in the country. It's a prime example of what's known as postmodern or POMO architecture, which in itself is a revolt against the austerity of post-war brutalist formal architecture. It uses a lot of open space, it's very playful, it's often asymmetrical, it uses polychrome, a wide variety of different materials, it's quite joyful and often like toy-like and childish, but this is a classic example of the style, so much so that's why it's got listed status. By the time it was finished, POMO was really out of fashion. It's on the site of a former much-loved Victorian silver shop, Mappin and Webb. They've reused the clock from them for this centerpiece here, and it's a great place. This is where a satanic child murder took place in the fictional Hawksmoor by Peter Ackroyd. He pretended that the architect, Nicholas Hawksmoor, was in fact a secret Satanist who ensured the murder of a child at every one of his churches to set up worshipping the devil. Nothing of the sort really happened, however, but it is quite a scary church in my opinion. Incidentally, T.S. Eliot used to work just over the road up here in Lloyd's Bank headquarters. He was very senior, head of internal communications, and in his work, The Wasteland, he talked about the church bells here, ringing right next to his office. He claimed that they made a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. 121 soldiers and civilians died here when a German V1 bomb landed in the middle of this guard chapel. in Birdcage Walk. You will notice that the flags here are different from each other. This has got just a white diagonal stripes. This has got a red one in the middle of it. That's because the one on the left is from before 1801, when the union with Ireland created the additional stripe down it to signify that. All the flags here are kept until they decay, and then they are buried with full military honours. I'm at Spitalfields Market, looking at these amazing sculptures of rescued elephants by the famous artist Gilly and Mark. And what I really love about them is this injunction. Winston Churchill set up the SOE, Special Operations Executive, in this very hotel in 1940. And the hotel have now set up a special display case showing some of the ultra-secret equipment that was developed for use by agents undercover in Europe during the Second World War. Just have a look at the things in this cabinet. As you can see here, this is a compass set into studs on a collar. This is the Lysander plane that was used to ferry agents into Europe. There's a bust of Churchill himself, who founded the SOE in this very hotel in 1940. Here are some coins with a concealed knife inside them for close quarters combat. Here is a pilot's brush, which includes a saw and a compass inside it as well. Here are boots, which you would have taken a knife to rip away the upper sections from once you'd landed safely to transform themselves into plain shoes. Here is a chess set with a concealed cabinet inside with a compass in it and also a map. There are many, many other things, including this lethal women's hairbrush with a sharp stiletto knife inside it as well, all in the wonderful St Ermin's Hotel. So I'm in the St Ermin Hotel, and I've been told there is a secret tunnel here I can go down. Well, you won't be able to get very far down it, but let's have a look. Oh my God. And this allegedly was a tunnel that used to lead all the way to the Houses of Parliament, for the MPs to get back when the division bell used to ring in the lobby of the hotel. I'll show you the division bell as well. So basically the division bell is when you're due to turn up in the lobby. You don't want to bother listening to the debate because you know what party line you're going to vote for already. So you hang around the Houses of Parliament, come out to have your dinner or lunch or hotel or whatever. They would ring this bell with just enough time for you to run back and vote. A bit like text messages nowadays, you don't need them anymore, but this is the history of the division bell. There was a pretend sign out this secret headquarters at MI6 when it operated from 1924 onwards. It pretended to be the Minimax Fire Extinguisher Company. Of course, everyone knew what it really was, but it was a useful pretend, much like in the James Bond books. MI6 operates under Universal Exports. So, if you're ever visiting St Pauls Cathedral, just come across the road and look at the offices over here. You'll see in the distance there's a map of London. And what's fascinating about this map is that the brown bit is the current London, the black bit is based on a design by Christopher Wren made just after the Great Fire of London in 1666, and it shows his plans for a new geometric London, laid out like the Paris boulevards would be about 200 years later, designed to reflect human instincts to brush away the old medieval floor plan. Unfortunately, it wasn't successful due to, he says, intrigue in Parliament, and they were forced to rebuild the city on the old medieval lines, but that's why that black map is there. Just having my lunch in the empty, amazing Guildhall courtyard. And I thought I'd point out the steep spire on this church over here. Now, don't worry about the scaffolding because it's the top I'm looking at. If I zoom in and you look very closely at the very top of the spire, this is a grille. The reason being that the saint here, St Lawrence Jury, was griddled to death by the Roman emperor because he is the patron saint of comedians. And halfway through his grilling by his torturers, he is alleged to have said, "This side is done, please turn me over." And that's why he's the patron saint of comedians, St Lawrence. So I'm at Dartford Station, just seen Derry Brown. I found where the Rolling Stones met. Look at this. Fantastic. I'm at the spot where the Rolling Stones were formed. And say, Lector, si monumentum requiris circumspice, which means, "Oh reader, if you want to see my memorial, just look around you." Christopher Wren, 1632, 1723. This amazing cope was designed for the Queen's Silver Jubilee in 1977. It's decorated with amazing embroidery from a variety of all the beautiful churches that make up London. And it would have been handmade. It's absolutely stunning. What a fantastic work of art this is. It's on display in the Jubilee exhibition in the crypt of St Pauls Cathedral. This is my favourite church of them all, St Stephen Walbrook, one of the top 10 most important churches of the country, according to Nicholas Petner, the architect. It's by Christopher Wren, and it was a dry run because it has a dome in it for the future dome of St Paul's Cathedral, where we are now. Here we are, the wondrous embroidery and needlework of Jubilee Cope. Right, there's an animal missing from this. So we've got all these animals around here having a lovely meal or sharing food. What a lovely example of interspecies concordance. And yet, there's no pigs here. I think actually the pigs are probably here in these slices of what looks like bacon to me. This is one of the funniest books I've ever read, and I'm really pleased that I now own a first edition. It's called Three Men on a Boat, To Say Nothing of the Dog, by Jerome K. Jerome from 1889, and this is my first edition. Just a random sample from it. I like work. It fascinates me. I can sit and look at it for hours. I love to keep it by me. The idea of getting rid of it nearly breaks me. I take a great pride in my work. I take it down now and then and dust it. No man keeps his work in a better state of preservation than I do. Three Men in a Boat, the greatest Victorian comic novel, in my opinion. This statue marks the centre of London, the point from which all distances marked on your eye maps or whatever you use to get into London is calculated. It's a very historic spot. It's also the place where King Charles II avenged the murderers, the regicides of his father Charles I. He hunted them down. They were dragged to this spot and cruelly executed by being hung, drawn and quartered. The death knell for those who had dared to kill the king. So a king was executed on this very spot in 1649, January, a bitterly cold day, King Charles I. And even still nowadays, the clock on the Horse Guards Parade shows the time of day marked with a black spot at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when he was executed. This terribly sad document was a recommendation from the government that all family pets, cats and dogs, should be killed to avoid risk from air raids. And here are the instructions about how to execute animals humanely. In 1 week alone in 1939, pet owners took almost 400,000 animals to vets and animal charities to be killed. The Germans planned to arrest hundreds of British once they'd invaded here. This booklet lists them all, including, if you look carefully here, Dr. Sigmund Freud with his address. Many of the people listed here were Jewish, given the Germans' hatred of Jews, but also communists, authors, actors and artists were also listed here as well. Peace in Our Time. This is the very document signed by Chamberlain with Hitler in 1938 in an attempt to avert war And here is a plate given to Neville Chamberlain as a man of peace to honour his agreement. If you are a master forger and an officer captured by the Germans, you spend your time creating fake stamps to encourage the escape efforts. This man, Dick Whittington, used rubber from army boots, and with this penknife he carved these moulds to create these German stamps. I'm in the Mariners' Chapel of All Hallows by the Tower, and the cross crucifix which we see here, the ivory in it is meant to come from the cabin of the captain of the Spanish Armada, who in 1588 attempted to conquer this country. The wood, by the way, comes from the tea clipper, cutty sark. This man changed his religion 5 times as a servant to the Tudor monarchs to avoid being executed. He was a senior servant, started up with Henry VIII, who, as you know, changed from being a Catholic to breaking with the Catholic Church. Henry's son, Edward VI, the boy king, became a much more ardent Protestant than even Henry had been. His young older sister, however, when she became Queen, Mary Tudor, was an ardent Catholic and reconverted the church back in the country. And finally, her sister, Elizabeth I, brought us back again to what became the Church of England. This man was a servant to all of them. William Armagh, here he is with his sons, his wife, and their daughters. And he survived them all. He died in 1560 and happily wasn't executed for his religious beliefs, unlike so many. Right, Royal Road, we have the Victoria. And we have the Prince Albert, very close to each other. The funniest thing of the lot is, of course, Prince Albert had something very famous about his body. I won't go into detail here, but just let's say that the name of this street is very appropriate. So King's Cross is famous for the Harry Potter, but do you know all the other films that have been shot here? Have a look. Prince Charles and I are both members of the secret society here in Stevenson Way. Less than 1,300 members in the world globally. What is the society? It is number 12 Stevenson Way. It is the Magic Circle. And there I am. Very proud. This is a minute copy of what the original London Bridge would have looked like in about the year 1400, when it was the only bridge across London, built around 1209 in stone. There's a little drawbridge as well. They've even got some of the heads of executed traitors on the pin here, the first one of which was William Wallace, Braveheart, that amazing Australian actor. Now, this, as I said, also has a little chapel here dedicated to Thomas à Becket, England's patron saint at this time, around 1400. It took about an hour to cross the bridge, allegedly, when it was so busy, and the watermen and lightermen had restrictive practices, which meant that there was no other bridge until 1750. So this is the only way to cross it, unless you had a boat. Also, the many piers on the bridge meant that the water behind it froze easily. which is why we had so many frost fairs, as the water was so slow moving. It wasn't until 1831 that this was replaced with a much wider piers that the frost fairs ceased. But here you go, this is a view all the way along London Bridge in about the year 1400. This is James Steele, Scotland's master coin forger. He was first imprisoned for 3 years in the 1920s. His coins were virtually indistinguishable from the real things. This is the die that he made into sample coins. He was then arrested again, aged 80 in 1964, and imprisoned for the same offence. 15,000 coins, florins, were made. No one was ever suspected, and he was imprisoned again, aged 80. I'm in the Scottish National Gallery, the very first room, the Bridgewater Loan, and there's already some unbelievable artists represented here, including a Raphael, the Bridgewater Madonna, a Botticelli, and absolutely incredibly, this is a Leonardo da Vinci, the Madonna of the Yarn Winder. There's so much more here. Want to see a Turner Prize winning work of art right in front of your eyes? Just walk up the Scotsman steps. A few years ago they were completely redesigned from 1899 originally. Every single step is made out of a different type of marble, all sourced separately by the artist Martin Creed, the Turner Prize winning artist Martin Creed. This looks like veins in a body. It's absolutely fantastic. What a marvellous idea for a great work of art. And we'll walk all the way down to the bottom. Just look at the beautiful variation. Apparently each separate item is from a different type of marble. And I think it's very durable, lasts for centuries. And what a fantastic idea. Such beautiful variation in the art here. And I've just noticed it. I'm sure everyone in Scotland is aware of it, but I just think it's so stunning. So in the first of the Deathly Hallow films, the street behind this statue was disguised as a toilet. You walk down the steps there and you flush yourself down. But I've noticed something quite interesting about the statue here. Look really closely. It's got a slithering snake on it. I'm here in the Guildhall Art Gallery, the emptiest gallery in London, just about, and it's full of absolute treasures. I'm a guide here, and I'm going to show you one of the most exciting things here of all, a real surprise that's so important to the history of this country. Let's go down the stairs. Hopefully I can make it quicker. Okay, so we pass by Prince Charles with his nice ears. Let's run round the corner. It's completely free. We have here a genuine, original Roman amphitheatre in the basement that you can see, but also right at the end of the picture, in the corner, we have here an original copy of the Magna Carta from 1297 for King Edward I. So this guy invented or discovered human sperm with a stroke of luck. Could be an effective invisible ink. However, the smell gave it away, so it had to be stopped. Another interesting story about Mansfield Cumming is that he was travelling with his son in a car in the First World War in France. They were both in a terrible accident. His son was flung from the car. He was trapped, and he had to use a penknife to cut his own leg off to crawl across to his son, who sadly died. Thereafter, his wooden leg served as a fantastic recruitment utility. When interviewing candidates for the Secret Service, he would plunge a handy letter opener into his wooden leg. If they flinched, they were considered not good enough material to join the Secret Service. So Mansfield Cumming and his comings and goings. This is the original Hellfire Club. Let me tell you about it. Francis Dashwood, in about 1730, picked this tavern, the George and Vulture, in the centre of the little alleyways of the City of London, to be the London branch meeting of the Hellfire Club. They were a secret society who performed obscene parodies of Christian acts amongst other unspeakable things, and they met here. So this is the original Hellfire Club, as made famous, of course, in Stranger Things. Look, we're at Nicholson and Baker's Hairdressers by Leadenhall Market, and I'm just taking a group of my former work colleagues for a tour of the City of London. Why are we in this hairdressers, I hear you ask? Let me tell you, there is something hidden here. This is a section, a 1900-year-old section of the original Roman Forum and Basilica, the ancient law courts and business area in the City of London, with the typical bricks and tiles that you can see from Roman building work. It's all that remains. It used to be as big as Trafalgar Square, and this section here, which you can pause and read for yourself, explains the background to it. It's part of the terms of the lease for the hairdressers that they have to let people in to see it, which is why we're able to come in here without having our hair cut. By a spy who worked directly for the Queen, even after being unmasked, lived in this house. Number 30, Palace Court, the Russian embassy is just at the end of the street in Notting Hill. The man's name was Anthony Blunt. He'd been recruited by Burgess in the 30s to become a Russian spy, and he really wanted to be an art historian, but he was told to inveigle himself into the secret services. After the war, he went on to become a professor of art history, eventually managing the Queen's art collection. But he was unmasked as a spy in 1979, forced to be in disgrace, and died in his 70s. But he used to live for a while, at least, in this house, which was a centerpiece for Marxist intellectuals when he lived here. Have you heard about the smallest sculpture in London? The London Noses, the Soho Noses. So I'm here in Mayor Street, and if you look up on the wall, this is Soho House, by the way. If you look up on the wall over here, can you see there is a nose here? So the artist Ricky Buckley, I think in 1997, put 35 noses all about the Soho area and Admiralty Arch, etc. I think only 10 of them survive now, and this is one of them. All modelled on his own nose, not Napoleon's, as some people guess. They're slightly bigger than life size, I can see. But here we are, the noses of Soho here in Mead Street, or Maid. As Bob Dylan famously said, the pump don't work because the vandals took the handle. However, it wasn't vandals who took it. It was a doctor, Dr. John Snow, not he of the famous, whatever it's called, TV series fame, but a man who recognised that 500 people in 1 month alone in September 1854 died in this street from cholera. Now he worked out that it was probably due to the water, so he persuaded the disbelieving parish council to remove the pump handle here, and it promptly demonstrated that in fact it was the cause of the multiple hundreds of deaths, and was a symbol. The removal of the handle has become an international symbol of public health. So here we are in Broadwick Street in the middle of Soho, and it's an incredibly important step in public health. The pump don't work because the doctors took the handle. So this is Ronnie Scott's, the famous jazz club. Prince Charles once visited here, and afterwards he said to Ronnie Scott, "Are you sure that you're paying all your jazz musicians enough money? Because I've just seen it and they're all sharing the same cigarette." Poor innocent Prince Charles. By the way, I haven't been in a fight in Gangsters of Soho. I just fell off my bike on the way here today. This is the St Ermin Hotel. It used to be the Special Operations Executive headquarters in the Second World War, and many agents were recruited to be flown out to occupied France, etc. here about 10 years ago. This letter, which you can read if you pause, was sent to the hotel, this address here, from a woman who had worked for the SOE in the Second World War. It includes this really detailed coded silk handkerchief, which was set up to send messages using a secret code. Unfortunately, I have no idea what it reads to say, but the lady says, "Unfortunately, I was never lucky enough to go to St Ermin's. We were sent to Baker Street without even a cup of coffee." I'm David Harry. I am the London Spy. This is London. And please follow me if you like the videos. Click on the links to follow my TikTok, and come and see me at one of my tours.